So, Wes, we've been having a great conversation about the initial start of Eagle Venture Fund and how the team came together in the first place. What compelled you guys to get moving? Talk to me about you personally. What personally compels you to invest your time and capital in ventures that advance human freedom, justice, and flourishing?
I mean, I think it's a complex answer for everyone as we dig into it. I know that I really had to wrestle with when I started at this career. I, um, I had the impression many of the people in my family have lived on gift income and been full time in missions in some context, either overseas, like all over the globe, or here domestically. And I think it goes along with those paradigms of like these things are good, these things are not so good. I had the paradigm that if I really cared about my relationship with Jesus, that I would go into a full time gift income role. That's what people who have this thought in mind. That's what if you really are wholehearted, that's what you would do. And so for me, I really had to wrestle with why would I go into finance? And originally, my understanding of that was that I just need to go into finance in order to get more money into the hands of the people who really did the mission. And that sounded really depressing to basically sit on the JV team so the real players got to go do the action. I'm like, well, I want to go to the action, you know. Um, but um, but I did feel this strong pull, like this is the place I'm supposed to be. I really found investing interesting, and I'm thankful that I made the decision to come in. And so it's been this kind of journey of discovery from why on earth would a Christian go into finance at all to finding there's more and more treasures as you peel the onion of like, why do we create businesses? We would now say that every organization, for profit and nonprofit, are founded for the same reason, to solve a problem. Like we've talked about that many times, and that all these paradigms of like this is good and that this is bad have been broken down, and those lead up to deeper and deeper kind of exploration of what does it mean to invest from a redemptive lens. I'm sure next year we'll have a deeper understanding of it than we do this year. But it's been a really fun journey of discovery from this. Why on earth do you go into finance? Is it just to put money into the real mission? To today, we would say there's deep mission to be had in all kinds of organizations, regardless of their tax designation. And they're all founded to solve problems, and you can build portfolios to solve problems. And who knows how deep this rabbit hole will go.
When you think about the work Eagle does, what does impact truly mean to you?
Impact at its core means people's lives transformed. The We do care about the earth. The Lord cares about the earth. He created it, but the just the value of humans and how their lives are transformed is what moves us. That's what we get really excited about. That might be somebody who's been trafficked becoming free. It might be somebody who's been in generational poverty, catching vision, way to flourishing in all aspects of their life. We love the book Becoming Whole by Brian Fikkert, which brings language to this isn't just about making Africa look like South Lake, Texas. This isn't primarily just getting people to a place where they can have a higher income and consume more. It's about we are spirit, soul, and body beings. How do all aspects of people reach flourishing? So in all aspects of our lives, whether it's somebody who has cancer and cancer anymore, somebody returning from prison, actually entering a life that is flourishing in all forms, from relationally, financially, and spiritually, those are lives transformed. And seeing scalable ways to do that, so often the most scalable way to do it is in a for-profit startup. We were just looking at a brilliant idea that had been pulled together, and on a nonprofit side, they had pitched some great funders. It's going to be $30 million to do over 5 years. And then we took a look at it to do it in a for-profit context. And we're like, probably really don't need that much, but we'll call it somewhere between a quarter million. Um, and everybody
Wow.
in the picture was going to save money or be at the same. Like all of these organizations were actually going to pay the same amount, or maybe even save money. The only people who were going to lose were, in this case, creators that wanted to take videos of little boys. Um, and and we're like, wow, sometimes we should really look at middle in that saying. It's a good social good, then it's a 501(c)(3).
Nice. No, totally agree with you on that one. Uh, how do you define success?
Well done, good and faithful servant. Like for I'm a follower of Jesus and totally believe that the Bible tells us that it's really, really soon I'm going to stand in front of him and he's gonna give me some assessment of what I did. Uh, and um, so I mean that is hands down the definition of success. And when you start looking at that, like I really love Henry Kissinger, a couple years ago was talking about this idea of we talk about risk that we could lose money. Like we define risk and reward almost as volatility of like, what if the bank account value goes down? What if we redefined risk and said, there's which one has the highest risk that I wouldn't get a well done, good and faithful servant? CD ladders don't look that great when your risk is that he wouldn't say, well done, good and faithful servant. Uh, we might use CD ladders, might be a really powerful tool to do cash flow management. They can totally be a tool that we use to achieve that well done and good and faithful servant. But if I'm using them because I'm scared and not willing to take risk on behalf of the people around me, or there can be hard situations where that CD ladder skyrockets my risk. That he goes, Wes, I gave you so much potential, and you sat on it.
Was there a particular story, person, or like a moment that cemented your why behind this mission?
It's probably 1,000 stories, but I often look back to it was one of the hardest to compute moments of my life was um, I was the officer in charge of the U.S. detachment to the Philippines supporting. We had special operations on the ground that were embedded with Filipino military, and I commanded all the aircraft that were doing the overhead support of them. And I was commanding the mission that day. And as we broke through the clouds and checked in with the special operations on the ground, they gave us the intel from the on the ground sources. And the tasking was intel says children will be used. ISIS will be using children in combat today, using as big and like what's the tasking? Go find these kids before these traps are sprung. And I spent the whole day. At first, like it just didn't compute. It wasn't in my paradigms that people would do that with children. First, I'm like, they're doing that with their own children? What evil people? I'm like, wait a minute. Then as you're like hunting for hours, you're like, wait a second. Probably aren't their own children. Like, what is going on? Like, you're just trying to put together pieces to understand a world in which what's happening in front of you can possibly make sense. And
Mm.
there's a lot of processing that it took to go through. That was a very intense piece of combat. And ISIS is just an evil organization. Um, but it started that and some other stories of finding out that people close to me had been trafficked. Started to realize I think we have a deeply underdeveloped sense of evil in a lot of the communities that I've grown up in.
Mm.
Where we've seen our lives have become so insulated from suffering. And we have this kind of fictitious idea that everybody's pretty good,
Mm.
that really isn't consistent with multinational organizations that are designed to make money hurting. And they use people to make money to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. Like these things don't fit with our paradigms. When people see maps of a city and see thousands of brothels across their city, they're like, wait a second, that does not compute with my picture of my city. And for me, it was almost like I had to open up my picture of the world to include um, that there was a lot more darkness and even kind of reread the Bible and understand, oh, he talks about evil people. Um, we don't, we cringe at talking about the idea that anybody could be evil. Um, but it's a lot easier after you spend the day hunting for children that have been used in traps.
Mm. Wow. What a horrible situation. And yet something that you guys worked on. So as we move from, Eagles past to your like purpose and motivation into the evolution and growth, Talk to me a little bit more about how Eagle's mission or focus has evolved from the first fund to today.
At the beginning, our mandate was go make a 20% IRR and try to make people's lives better. Like, hey, this significant impact, significant returns, these two can go together. And so that's super general. And that was cutting edge, innovative, and specific at the time. And people would say, are there possibly that many redemptive companies in the world that you could build a fund? Like those types of questions were happening. As we deployed for years and years and saw couple things happen. We saw more and more really amazing, deeply redemptive companies, and um, and we started to see themes developing. And we kept answering. I mean, we've for now almost 10 years been answering the question: what about the tension between profit and impact? Because remember, most people are coming in with a linear idea that on one end are the completely good people that are doing nonprofits, on the other end are the barely not in prison people that make the
Mhm.
most money. And so we've been answering the question again and again and again: what about the tension between profit and impact? Because when we say the two can go together, we break their paradigm. And that's forced us to start to create a language around what we did today call direct impact, because I kept having this sense of like, I know these companies are, there's not a tension between their profit and impact. How do I explain that to people in a way that would make sense? And so today we did describe it as this idea that if a direct impact is where a company's good or service is the impact that you're looking for. So if their revenue goes up, you get more of what of that impact, and you end up with this direct correlation between profit and impact. If you can build a portfolio out of companies where their revenue and their impact directly correlate, then you get to root for their impact just like you root for their revenue, and you truly get to have your cake and eat it too. The thing that sounded impossible is now true if you have
Mm.
direct impact. And then we juxtapose it against companies who, so many people, when they want to, when they think of an impact company, they think, oh, let's go make profit and give it away, kind of a Tom's model of make profit, give it away. In that case, the impact comes from philanthropy. They've just taken philanthropy, bolted it onto an old business model, called it impact. And that's not inherently bad, but you live in an inverse relationship between profit and impact. So gradually, we've come to more and more understanding of first just intuiting like, oh, I can see VeriSkills is going to make a ton of profit and a ton of impact. Let's go back and let's help them shape it. Today they have like 16 million in revenue, tons of refugees and vulnerable people getting jobs. But at the time, I don't know how well we could have told you and explained that if you build a portfolio out of VeriSkills, you have a chance to hit it out of the park on both profit and impact. So gradually, so much of it has been the pain of trying to explain to people why what is we knew what was working inside the portfolio. Explaining it to them has forced us to develop language that both affects their ability to understand it, but also affects who we are and our own ability to put words around where we're going and what we love about what is happening inside of Eagle.
Nice. Nice. Dude, I love it. All right. So tell me two or three of the lessons that you've learned from the early years that have shaped how you lead and invest now.
It is tempting when you start working with issues that really, really move your heart, like kids in foster care, children that are being raped for profit. It is super tempting to drop everything you know about business and just say maximize for impact. Um, and you almost can feel like a moral imperative to do that because the child's being raped. Um, But when you're building highly scalable solutions and trying to address something that, so we have 26 million labor trafficking victims in the world, one by one isn't going to turn the tide, if that makes sense. That we have to hold on to the things about business that will make it scale. And so what you have to find is we would now say that the pain and ability to pay have to be in the same entity. And we've
Mm,
developed language around what's broken about capitalism is that we took profit as a purpose and said it was the entirety of the game. And we now use the imagery that that's like the profit. And when people don't buy or sell or do buy or sell are like the nervous system of the body. And it's super powerful. It's amazing. If you don't have a nervous system, like that is like people literally die if they don't have it,
Mm,
because they'll stub their toe and not know that they're bleeding and things like that. It is a disease. But then we told that nervous system, you are the entire purpose for the body's existence. You're going to pump the blood now. That's literally what we did in that imagery. We said that purpose of profit is the entire reason it exists. Um, and everybody can feel that something's wrong with capitalism when you do that. But
mm,
we said, no, we need a heart transplant, but don't lose the nervous system. You still, if you want to change the world, you have to go figure out what people are willing to pay for. And if you want to help those kids, you're not going to lose great business. You're going to say, in order to help those kids, I have to figure out a business model that will scale. And so I think
mm,
we've been in it a lot longer now. And now we know, care about that kid so much, I won't bend on the business model that can't work, if that makes sense. Because if
mm,
I that's it's actually not loving to back a business model that, or to not listen to the data, because the kid doesn't, at scale, the kids don't get saved unless you figure out a business model that works at scale. And so as we develop that language, now we understand a much, much more robust mental model and just grit to say, no, we haven't solved the problem. And and in some cases to let companies sit in the pain while they figure out the answers to those questions, because we know it's not just I feel bad, I'll give you funding, that solves a problem. And obviously we never intentionally did that, but we're just so much more robust today at our ability to say, um, why we're saying no because we care, where we didn't have a framework for that in the early days.
mm. What's one more business lesson that you've learned?
Data, data, data. I mean, it's kind of similar, but it is possible very, very early in companies' journey to get market feedback. People want to go build an app and then take it to the market. It's possible to go talk to 100 people and give them the best description possible and say, would you pay for this? Does it solve a problem? And then it's possible to build a clickable prototype and take it back to them and say, if it worked just like this, what would you pay for it? It's possible to pull that nervous system of capitalism earlier into the process. That's part of why we love venture studios today, because if you can, as early in the process of a business as possible, get market feedback, then you can save a ton of money. You can spend 5 million building it, get to market, and then get your feedback, or you can get feedback from day one.
Yeah. Let me tell you which
And then
one
do it
works better.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. All right. When did you realize that Eagle had moved from just an idea to more of a movement?
Is it? I guess I mean, it has been really special it was a complete experiment when we decided to build a fund around counter trafficking. And um, I think there was an inkling that maybe people would rally around that idea. But the way that Clapham and that community with Tim Tebow and Scott Donnell and so many people have rallied around the idea that business can help fight human trafficking, um, has definitely put us in the mix on a movement that is more exciting and more fun than I've ever been a part of. Like we talk about what was so fun about being in the military was being on a talented team, making a difference in a battle that matters. And um, and it's so fun when you can smell that momentum on something, and people are just there's a magnet of people who want to make a difference coming towards that sense of, oh, I can be on that talented team making a difference in a battle that matters. And that's definitely happening around counter trafficking. Um, but it's the Lord's hand. I can't really say it how it exactly happened.
Yeah. No, I got you. All right. Moving into the future. So now, kind of looking forward, what future do you hope Eagle will help create, like for founders, investors in the world?
I mean, my dream would be that it would be a deep heart shift in so many people to bring this excess capital that's not needed today to put food on the table in alignment with that core question: will they get a well done, good and safe, faithful servant? There's deeply and profoundly broken systems in how we built Wall Street. We bought off on lies like the purpose of investing was to make money. The purpose of investing isn't to make money. It's to solve problems and express creativity. And one of the fruits of that is that you make money if you do that really well. Um, so at its heart cry level, it would be that we've seen a profound shift in our understanding of why we build businesses and why we invest. Um, that kind of that heart transplant for capitalism would have happened for a lot of people, where they would be putting right alongside the risk that they can't retire at the on the date that they wanted to, the risk that they would not get well done, good and faithful servant, that it would become a profoundly integrated and worshipful experience if you're a follower of Jesus, that they would see investing as an act of worship, that they would be just as excited about their impact investments as they were about philanthropy. And part of that is that we absolutely believe that in 10 years, sophisticated philanthropy and investing will be dancing in a beautifully intertwined way that
Mm.
anybody who's at the top of their game should expect their investment portfolio to be making massive strides towards the same as on the same goals as their philanthropic portfolio. I believe in 10 years it'll be just par for the course. Like, what is your investment team totally synced with your philanthropy team on achieving the same? Um, so many things are possible that we didn't think were possible a few years ago. We just did an investment dedicated to serving the homeless. I would have completely put that in the bucket of I will never get the chance to invest in for-profit solutions for homelessness. Like, I literally have said that in the past. I was completely wrong. What else am I wrong
Mm.
about? Is it possible to invest on behalf of the unborn? I don't know. Maybe. I wouldn't be. I won't. At this point, I won't be shocked. There was a whole list of problems that I thought were not investable, and I keep being wrong. So that's where I see it's going. That people will expect their investments and their philanthropy to dance unto actually getting well done, good and faithful servant.
Nice. What a good vision. I like it. Okay. Um, if someone were to describe Eagle 10 years from now, so it's 2025, so we're talking 2035, what would you want them to say?
I would hope that they would marvel at our humility, because I think the Lord's going to do some special things. Um, and I would hope that they would sense that um, the fear of God is such a big deal. And I would hope that the Lord gives us the gift of the fear of the Lord so deeply that people smell something that is profoundly different than what they would expect. And my guess is that that would look like humility that surprises them.
Hmm, appreciate that. All right, two more questions. How do you see Eagle's role in redefining what venture capital as a whole can stand for?
Venture capital has a profoundly unique place in the financial world in that we're allowed to fail.
Mm.
Very, very few investors in the world are allowed to take 20 shots on goal, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, totally. 4 of those are going to zero. Like, did you expect anything else? What other, like, if you build a public markets portfolio for small cap and you narrow it down to 20 companies and 4 of them go to zero, you get fired.
Mm.
But we live in a world where we're allowed to fail. It has powered profound innovation. The internet was accelerated significantly because Silicon Valley was willing to make some bets. Um, I believe that it's possible. It's already happening. Like, we're not alone in people thinking venture capital pointed at social problems would be super powerful. I would like to continue to push that boundary internally, and hopefully that affects others. I think we've built the first fund dedicated to counter trafficking. I would hope that we would be the leaders in an era of venture capital funds dedicated to solving social issues, that people would look and be like, oh, remember the days when there were no funds that were dedicated to social issues and capitalism didn't really play its role in solving social problems? Yeah, I remember that day. Glad it changed. That would be really
Yeah.
cool. You know?
Yo, dude. All right. So here's probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you today. Um, so it's based on a conversation I had with my son the other night. So we're talking in the car on the way back from, Boy Scouts and an event, and we are talking about what we did, and he was like, "What are you gonna do tomorrow?" And I was like, "I'm gonna go to work." He was like, "Oh." He was like, I was like, "Yeah, I go to work every day, Titus." And he was like, "Okay." And he was like, "What are you gonna do at work?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, talk to a few people, write some emails, prepare some documents, have some conversations with entrepreneurs, that type of thing. And he was like, "Oh, okay." And so he started to frame it a little bit. And then he was off to other things. But here's my question. You have 4 sons. Um, what is your family like? What do your kids think uh, of what you do, or what do they think you do? And then, and part of that is, what do you hope they will think about what you do?
Well, a couple mornings ago, I'll give you a picture of the breakfast table. My
Mm.
7-year-old shared that he had an idea to deal with human trafficking. And because he hears us talk about these different terms, he's like, Dad, here's the idea. If we just had way fewer cars, then we would deal with the traffic issue.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, which I'm glad that like starred my 7-year-old with deep stories of human trafficking, right?
Right,
Um,
right, right.
and I tried to, in a 7-year-old way, go on and explain. Like here's that people are using one another and whatnot. Um, so varying degrees of understanding on
Yeah.
our side today and what we're doing. Um, but I do believe, I hope that they understand a deep calling on, I believe every family has kind of callings from the Lord. And to some degree, I'm hoping to be able to give them a sense that they're part of a bigger story, that they
Hmm.
play a very real role, and that their skill set is part of the arc of the story of God. And that our family as a whole, actually, like God tends to work through families. God didn't um, have completely different and separated relationships between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the ancient Hebrew. He had a unified story and a vision for a family. And
Hmm.
historically, it doesn't look like nonprofit boards that he tends to work with. It looks like families. Um, so I dream that we would have some sense of unity of our understanding of what the calling is on our family, and
Hmm.
um, fully integrating that he made profound. Like I've been blown away how different our 4 sons are, in the most exciting way possible. They're just not like each other at all, and they're glorious in each of their own right. That in their uniqueness, they're part of an epic narrative, both of history, but that what part our family plays in it, that it would give them the safety to take radical risks and also stand in front of Jesus and get that well done, good and faithful servant.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hey, Wes, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate your thoughtful answers and this conversation. I'm excited about the future of Eagle even more. Kind of hearing about your, storyline and journey and just where you think it's going.